there, fellow collector, Shuki here with a review of the Ultraman Ultra Action Figure Series releases of Ultraman Zero, Ultraman Orb Spacium Zeperion, and Ultraman Geed Primitive. So you got basically all three of these guys in their default form, so to speak, and these are pretty cool. These are a whole new line that they just released this past February 2018. Each one's about 1,500 yen or so, give or take, depending on when and where you picked it up, which is perfectly reasonable for a figure like this in Japan, so you're looking at about $12 or so, which I don't think is too bad. Yeah, they don't include any accessories or anything like that, but they are a pretty decently painted and decently posable quality figure, so I will definitely say that. They do look really cool. Basically with these, you're looking at about the quality of a Kamen Rider gimmick figure, like the BCR series for Build, or X8's figure line, or Gaim's figure line, or something like that. It's about the quality of build and level of articulation of something like that. But being an Ultraman, they don't really come with accessories or anything like that. There's no gimmicks involved, so they're significantly cheaper than those Rider figures are. So a pretty cool lineup of figures for the first wave, so let's go ahead and get these open and take a look. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start with Zero. Yeah, so getting these out of the box, I can definitely still say that they're really good figures for their price. Are they super high quality figures? Absolutely not. But, like I said, they are perfectly good figures for the price. For those of you that are on a budget, can't really afford the Figuarts or anything like that, I think these are perfectly good figures to add to your display. Or if you have a kid getting into Ultraman or something like that, these are great figures for them as well. They kind of remind me a little bit of a construction of like a Bandai America Power Ranger figure or something like that, just in terms of price and quality. So from the front, he actually looks really, really good. I will totally give him that. The silver is nice and shiny. The red is vibrant. The blue is vibrant. He looks very, very cool. And there is a look at his head sculpt. You have the sluggers up there looking very cool as well. So like I said, everything looks very, very nice. You flip him around, things get a little bit different. Like I said, much like the Bandai America Power Ranger figures, he's completely unpainted in the back. So there's no silver throughout here. It just kind of suddenly stops up on the upper shoulders. So there's no detailings at all through here. It just kind of looks like this weird Superman colored pajama man or something from the back here. So not a huge fan of the way that looks, but again, you're not really going to see the back when this is posed on a shelf, so it's not a absolute huge deal. In terms of articulation, you do have a full rotation at the head. It is on a ball joint. His little spine thing makes him not want to go all the way, so it's not a full rotation, but it is on a kind of a ball joint, so you do get a little bit of up and down movement and stuff like that. Simple swivel system up here in the shoulder, a swivel at the bicep, a single joint at the elbow, and a rotation at the wrist, as well as the usual two-fingered groups that the Rider gimmick figures love to use. In terms of the legs, you have that same kind of swivel system in the hips. Unfortunately, there's no thigh rotation, which I think is kind of the real killer here. If this had a thigh rotation, posing would be a lot easier than it actually is. A single joint at the knee, but it's a pretty good joint, and then a ball and socket joint down here at the ankle, so you get a lot of movement down in the toes. So you get about 17 points of articulation on these figures, which is very good for the price. I will give it that. And like I said, I think it's only a thigh swivel away from actually kind of just meeting all the expectations of posability. And you can still get some pretty good poses even without the thigh swivel. You just kind of have to make do with the knee and ankle joints to get a little bit more splayed open of a pose. And of course there's no waist movement or anything like that. Most of these gimmick figure quality things from Bandai usually don't. So that's something we're just kind of used to. But there you go. So there's a pretty decent quick pose for Ultraman Zero. So like I said, some pretty good figures. I will give it that. Like, for their price, I think they're pretty good figures. Are they going to beat the Figuarts? Absolutely not. But for those collectors on a budget, I think these are pretty good figures, and I really hope they kind of expand the line into some more Ultraman characters or more forms for these guys as well. So here is Orb, my personal favorite Ultraman, in his first form, Spacium Zeperion. Very neat. I've always loved this form's color scheme quite a bit. I think Orb Origin is ultimately my favorite, but always dug the color scheme for this one. Ultraman Antigua. Again, from the back, he is very plain, but not much you can do about it except paint it yourself. But from the front, he does look very nice. The purple is nice and vibrant. The package shows a little bit more of a blue, but the actual figure itself is very, very purple. But still, he's got a nice head sculpt going on. Very Orb. I love the little purple kind of light gem in the middle of his forehead. It's always kind of struck me as something that's pretty cool about Spacium Zeperion. But you got the purples, the blacks, the reds, offsets with the blue. Very, very nice. Like I said, I'm just a fan of this form in general. And all these kind of share the same base skeleton. So, all the same levels of articulation. Nothing's really going to get in the way of anything, though he does have these shoulder pads. So you're going to get a little bit less rotation in the arms than Zero. But nothing huge or detrimental or anything like that. And he wants to fall over. Don't fall over, Orb. We believe in you. And last but not least, he fell anyway. I still believe in him, though. Here is our last main Ultraman, Geed in his default form, Primitive, Ultraman and Ultraman Belial. I've always loved Geed's design. It's very kind of evil looking while still maintaining all the key points of like a good Ultraman with the red and silver base with some black accents. It just kind of captures Ultraman and Ultraman Belial very, very well in a fusion form. So I've always really dug that about Geed, and Geed was a really fun series as well. Like I said, all the same points of articulation as the other figures, but definitely really cool. The silver paint used is not as shiny as Zero's, but definitely still looks very good. It matches in the head at the very least. So speaking of, there is his moderately evil looking head sculpt, again, because of that Belial influence that we all know and love, which I've always thought was really cool with Geed. Fortunately, when you flip him around, he definitely looks like Red Pajama Man. He's just in a big giant red onesie, but from the front, you got all that paint detailing that looks very, very cool. And of course, you can, with these figures, get the kind of classic Ultraman beam shooting pose. You can even kind of splay his legs out a little bit, just like that, so you can get the classic firing pose with all these figures, because what would they be if you couldn't do that pose? So that about does it for these. Are they worth your money? I think so, given the price that they're at and the fact that there's a pretty high chance of them actually going on sale further on down the line, as a lot of Ultraman products generally do. I think they're a pretty good steal. I mean, at 1,500 yen, you're looking at about $12, and if you get a discount at places like HLJ or AmiAmi, you're only looking at about $10 for these, which is the same price as like a general Power Rangers figure, and I think they at least match the quality of those, if not surpass them. So I definitely think they're a pretty good quality figure, and I really hope that they expand that line to include some new forms, some new Ultramen. So at the end of the day, I do hope these do very well. It'd be really cool if the backs were painted, but again, to fit in that price point, I'm sure they just couldn't. But at the end of the day, I do like them a ton. So that about does it for this review. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and as always, thanks for watching, take care, and have a great one. Bye. I'd like to thank Joey, Mr. Mike, Joshua, and all my fans who support me on Patreon.